You believe a crowd is the safest place to be. All those people, all that noise. It's a kind of camouflage. But sometimes you notice one pair of eyes is seeing only you. And you realize the most dangerous predator is the one who knows how to hide in plain sight. I went shopping at the mall last year. This was my local mall, maybe a 10-minute drive from my house. I always liked it there because it's huge. They keep it feeling modern, and it has basically every store or restaurant you could possibly want. There's even a movie theater attached to it, so it's a whole day kind of place. To give you some context, I'm a 20-year-old female. I was home from college for the summer, living with my parents. There were a couple of big sales happening at 2 different stores that I shop at all the time, so I figured I'd make a day of it. I asked my best friend if she wanted to come with me, but she was busy, so it was just going to be me. I think I got to the mall around 11 a.m. It was already getting pretty crowded. After hitting the first 2 stores and getting a few things, I went inside a shoe store just to browse. I wasn't really looking for anything specific. After a few minutes of just wandering around, an employee came up to me. He introduced himself as David and said if I needed any help, to just let him know. He had brown hair, looked to be in his mid-30s, and was kind of short. I told him I was fine, but he didn't really take the hint. He launched into this whole spiel about all the deals they had, asking me what I was looking for, what my personal style was, all that stuff. At first it just felt like a salesman trying really hard to make a commission, but the vibe started to shift. It felt less like he was trying to sell shoes and more like he was just prying. I finally just told him, pretty directly, that I wasn't planning on buying anything there, and that I'd already spent more than I meant to for the day. He said, "Got it," and I really thought he would just walk away then, but he didn't. Instead, he asked me if I went to school nearby. I told him where I went to college, just to be polite, and then started walking toward the exit. But David followed me. He asked why I was leaving so soon, and then he said he wanted to get to know me a little better. That was it. The switch flipped, from annoying to genuinely creepy. I left the store, and honestly, I should have just gone home right then. But I love shopping, so I pushed the feeling down and went into another store nearby. I was in that store for maybe 20 minutes, trying to shake off the weird feeling. When I left, I was walking back down one of the main hallways of the mall, and I saw David again. This time, he was walking down the same hall, but on the opposite side, heading toward me. He wasn't looking at me, or at least I didn't think he was. I figured he was on his break, or maybe his shift had just ended. Either way, I wanted nothing to do with him. I immediately looked away, trying to use a group of people as a sort of shield so he wouldn't spot me. Once I was sure he'd passed, I risked a look back over my shoulder just to be sure. That's when I saw him, standing still, staring right at me from across the hall. My blood ran cold. I looked away as fast as I could and picked up my pace. Now, I was definitely going home. I walked as fast as I could without running, until I got back to the mall entrance I'd used, then got to my car and left. I drove home, and for the rest of the night, I just tried to forget about it. I hung out with my family, we watched a movie, and everything felt normal. I went to my bedroom around midnight, but I wasn't tired, so I turned off my lights and put on some Netflix on my TV. I was maybe 30 minutes into an episode, so it was about 12:30 a.m. when I heard a noise outside my bedroom window. It sounded like a tree branch scraping against the glass, but it was rhythmic, unnatural. I have curtains that cover most of the window, but there's a small gap. I glanced over, saw nothing but darkness, and turned my attention back to the TV. A minute later, I heard it again, louder this time, and I saw something move past the gap. It was just for a second, a flicker of motion, but I knew something was there. It was way too deliberate to be an animal. I paused the show, and my room went silent. I just stared at the window, my heart pounding. For about 10 seconds, There was nothing. Then I got up, thinking I'd just closed the curtain all the way. I had taken maybe 2 steps toward it when a face came into view in the gap. It was David. I literally jumped back. I couldn't process it. How? Why was he at my house, at my bedroom window? The moment he saw me, he looked surprised. Then he ducked down below the window frame, out of sight. I kept staring, frozen. I wanted him to be gone, but I knew he was just hiding below the window. After a few seconds, his head popped back up. He looked right at me, and then he knocked on the glass. I screamed. I yelled as loud as I could that I was calling the police. David just stayed there, at the window, and put a finger up to his mouth in a shushing gesture. My parents must have heard me because my dad started knocking on my bedroom door from the hallway. I flung it open, and when he came in, he saw David's face in the window. My dad just took off, sprinting out of the room yelling something I couldn't understand. I grabbed my phone and dialed 911. I could hear my dad burst out the front door, and then the loud screech of tires a moment later. He'd gotten away. My dad came back inside, breathing hard, and said he was maybe 10 feet from grabbing him. It's probably for the best that he didn't catch him, honestly. I have no idea how dangerous David was, and I wouldn't want my dad fighting him. The police showed up a few minutes later. I was able to give them everything. A detailed description, his name, where he worked. That was enough. They arrested him the next day. I feel so much safer now, but I still can't look at my window the same way. Last year, I took a trip to the Mall of America. I was visiting Minnesota from my home state of South Carolina to see some family, and on my first day there, I knew I had to go see the giant mall. It was overwhelming. I spent the first hour just exploring the stores before walking through the massive amusement park in the center. I was having a great time, but I remember this specific moment when I was leaving the amusement park area and heading back into the main mall concourse. Some guy walked out right behind me. That same guy proceeded to follow me down the giant mall hallway for what felt like at least 5 minutes. Then he went up the escalator directly behind me. It quickly became obvious that he was following me. He wasn't even trying to be subtle about it. The only reason I noticed him so fast was because he stayed about 10 feet behind me, consistently. When I stopped to look in a store window, he stopped.
When I kept walking, he started walking, perfectly in sync. He could have passed me a dozen times. Going up an escalator, I stood sideways and glanced back to get a good look at him. He was thin, wearing a t-shirt and jeans. He had longer red hair pulled up in a bun. I took the next escalator up to the 3rd level, and so did he. When I got to the top, I walked around until I found the food court.
I was hungry and wanted to get something to eat, but not with this guy breathing down my neck. I decided to test it. I sat down at a random empty table to see what he would do. He walked over and sat down at the table right next to mine. Then he just looked around, pretending to be taking in the sights, as if he wasn't following me at all. Did this guy seriously think he was being inconspicuous? Because he was failing miserably. I sat there for a bit, texting my family and just browsing on my phone, trying to decide what to do. Finally, I'd had enough. I stood up from my table and walked directly over to his. He didn't even look at me until I was standing right in front of him for a good 5 seconds. Then he slowly looked up, a surprised expression on his face. I just said to him, "Hey, why are you following me?" The man didn't deny it. He didn't even answer. He just got up from the table and walked away. I was so taken aback by the bizarre behavior, but I watched him walk until he was completely out of sight. At that point, I was just relieved he was gone. I was finally able to order some food and eat in peace. After that, I wandered around for a while longer, bought a few souvenir-type things and a hat. By the time I was done, my legs were aching from all the walking, and I had completely forgotten about the man. I left the mall through a skyway and started walking towards the parking garage where I'd left my car. My plan was to drive back to my hotel, which was about 10 minutes away, and then see my family the next day. I realized I was one level too high in the garage and had to take the concrete stairs down to the correct level. As I started walking down the stairs and turned the corner at the landing, I saw him again, the same guy. He was just standing on the side of the stairs, as if he was waiting. He looked right at me as I passed, and as soon as I did, he started following me again. I left the stairwell and entered the garage, walking towards my car. He stayed behind me the entire time. I was much more scared now. We weren't in the crowded mall anymore. It was just us in this quiet concrete echo chamber. I turned around and said, "Are you following me again?" He didn't say anything at first, just stared at me. Finally, he spoke. "No, my car's over here," he said. I didn't believe him for a second, especially since he was just standing in the stairwell doing nothing until the moment I passed. I didn't say anything back to him and just walked faster toward my car. He was following me from about 40 feet back, I'd guess. At last, I found my car. I walked up to it, but I was careful not to unlock it until I was right next to the door. The man walked to a car about 3 spots down from mine, but he didn't get in. He just stood by the door, watching me. As soon as I opened my back door to put my shopping bags inside, the man suddenly broke away from the car he was next to and started sprinting towards me. I had no time to get to my driver's seat. He was running so fast, and it caught me completely off guard. Instead, I dove into the back seat of my car and scrambled to press the lock button on my key fob, over and over. I heard the little horn honk, confirming the car was locked. The man reached my car maybe 3 seconds later. I was in the back seat as he yanked on the door handle. He was looking right inside the car at me, just a couple of feet away. The only thing separating us was the window. The fact that we were in a nearly empty parking garage with nobody else in sight made it 1,000 times worse. I crawled over the center console into the driver's seat and started my engine. I heard the guy say from outside the car, "You're not going anywhere." He moved to the front of my car as I got into the driver's seat, and when he saw me putting the keys in the ignition, he ran to the back of my car to block me in. There were cars parked on both sides of me and a concrete barrier in front, so backing out was my only option. The man just stood there, staring into my back window. After a few seconds, he said, "Get out of the car." I didn't know what to do, but I knew I wasn't getting out. The guy kept standing there, and I was terrified he was going to smash a window. I started laying on my car horn. I just kept pressing it repeatedly, holding it down for several seconds at a time. I was hoping to draw any attention I could. After about 20 seconds of constant honking, the guy actually walked away. As soon as he was clear, I threw the car in reverse and sped out of there. While I was driving away, I was worried he would get in his car and follow me, but I don't even think he was parked near me. I made it back to my hotel safely. I still don't understand how he knew where I was parked. Maybe it was a horrible coincidence, but the way he was waiting in that stairwell, it felt like he knew. When I told my family what happened, they were horrified. They ended up going back to the mall with me later that week. Thankfully, none of us were followed that time. In 2019, when I was 15, I had to go to a town about an hour away for a dentist's appointment at least once a month. It was always me, my father, and his girlfriend. On one of these days, while we were driving back to our city, we decided to stop at a pretty big mall that was on the way. After we got inside, we ate at the food court and then spent about an hour just walking around, looking in stores. We decided it was time to leave when we got to the ground floor. We noticed it was already dark outside, and the mall was pretty empty. Suddenly, out of the corner of my eye, I saw 2 men get on the escalator right behind us. As we walked towards the exit, I realized the men were having some kind of conversation, but it sounded off. It was low and meaningless, almost inaudible. like they were just making sounds to pretend they were talking. After we left the mall, we started walking towards our car. The parking lot was mostly empty because of the time, and our car was parked pretty far away. I realized that the two men were looking at us and then looking over towards our car, as if they were tracking where we were going. With every step, I felt a little bit more scared. Finally, we reached our car, but just a few seconds before we got there, I watched the men get into a white Chevrolet Onix that was parked directly behind our car. A few seconds after they got in, they didn't start the car or do anything. They just sat there. After we got into our car, my dad noticed it too. He told us to wait a bit. Everything was in this very awkward silence. Then my dad said, "We're going back." We got out of the car and started walking back to the mall. As soon as we did, the white Onix lit up its headlights and started driving slowly towards us. I noticed that even after we got back inside the mall, the car sat right in front of the entrance, and the men were just staring at us from inside. After about 10 seconds, they accelerated and drove away. We hadn't thought to write down the license plate, so we knew the police couldn't really do anything. We didn't even bother filing a complaint. The next day, my father told one of his co-workers what had happened, a guy who used to go to that mall a lot. His co-worker said that a week before, a man had been kidnapped and killed nearby, and a witness gave a description of the exact same car with two men inside. I don't think they were ever caught. I think they might still be out there. I'm a woman, and I work at a clothing store in our local mall. This happened over the summer. I started my shift at noon and was scheduled to close. The mall itself is open until 9 p.m., but our store closed at 8 on this particular day. It was a Saturday, so the mall was just an absolute zoo. We had a steady stream of customers all day, and I was busy at the register pretty much the whole time. Things started to get weird around 4 p.m. I remember I was at one of our 4 registers, ringing up a customer. The woman I was helping leaned in and told me that she wanted to let me know there was a guy in the store who was acting really creepy and suspicious. I thanked her for the heads up, and as soon as I was done with her, I told another employee. I wasn't exactly sure what creepy and suspicious meant, but I knew it wasn't good. She described him as a white male in a green sweatshirt and jeans, about average height. I tried to glance around the store, but from where I was, I couldn't see every corner. The racks and displays of clothing blocked a lot of the floor. I didn't see him. Not even 5 minutes later, I got another complaint. A different woman came to my register and said that a guy in a green sweatshirt seemed to be following her around the store. Once I finished helping her, I decided I had to go find this guy and figure out what he was doing. I left the counter and started walking the floor. Eventually, I saw him near the back corner of the store. He made eye contact with me for just a split second before looking away. The moment he saw me walking toward him, he turned around and started heading for the exit. Then he was gone. I figured he must have gotten the message without me even having to say anything. He knew he was doing something wrong and was about to get kicked out. I was just glad he was gone, so our customers wouldn't be bothered anymore. For the rest of my shift, everything was fine. Things quieted down a lot after 7 p.m., and the last hour was really calm. There were 3 of us working, and at 8 o'clock, the other 2 clocked out and went home. I stayed behind to do a few closing tasks. We closed the store by sliding these heavy metal barriers from both sides of the entrance. My last job of the day was to go around the store and make sure everything was tidy. It usually only takes me 10 or 15 minutes. I just sweep, pick up any garbage, and fix any displays that look messy. Things were taking a little longer that night because it had been a Saturday, so the store was more trashed than usual. I started at the front and slowly made my way to the back. I was almost done. At the very back of the store, tidying up one of the clothing racks, For some reason, I happened to look across to the other end. I was looking at the opposite back corner of the store, and then I saw something. There was a man hiding behind a clothing display, tucked inside another rack of clothes, sort of peeking out. I could just barely see that he was wearing green. I realized it was the same guy from earlier. In that moment, thankfully, he wasn't looking at me. My heart started to race, but I tried my best to act normal, to not give anything away. That corner of the store he was in was the only section I hadn't tidied up yet. I was about to head there next. I definitely wasn't going to now. After I finished pretending to organize the rack I was at, I just casually walked back toward the front of the store. When I got there, I stopped and quickly texted the mall security number. I was praying they would respond fast. I felt like I shouldn't leave the store, since I was the only employee there, but I really wanted to. I stayed right by the front gate, as far away from him as I could possibly get. A minute later, I heard a noise coming from the back of the store, a rack of clothes shifting. As soon as I heard it, I ran to the gate. I fumbled with the lock, slid it open just enough for me to slip out, and then pushed it shut behind me. As the gate was closing, I saw the man coming into view from the back of the store. I walked as fast as I could to the business next door and saw a security guard walking down the hallway towards me. I waved him over, and at that exact same time, I saw out of the corner of my eye the man leaving my store. I pointed at him, and the security guard basically had to chase the guy down the empty mall corridor. He did end up catching him, and I had to make a full report. I was just so happy to be okay. Looking back on it, I'm so glad I saw him when I did. It's terrifying to think about how he was hiding in the store, waiting for everyone to leave, alone with me as I was closing up. A few years ago, I was doing some shopping at the mall. I had a lot of things I needed to get, so I was there for a while. I'd guess I went to about 10 different stores and probably spent way too much money. But this story really starts after I was done with all my shopping. I left the mall at night when things were much quieter. Of course, when I'd gotten there earlier in the day, the giant parking lot was packed, and I had to park way out in the back. I walked out of the mall doors, looked around for a moment, and finally spotted my car. As I walked over to it, I saw a guy approaching my car from another direction. He wore a gray jacket and had his hands stuffed in his pockets. To be honest, he immediately came across as suspicious to me. I reached the driver's side door of my car and was about to open it when the guy reached me. He said, "Hey," and I turned to face him. The man said he was sorry to bother me, but was wondering if I could give him a ride. I almost immediately said back to him that I was sorry, but no, I couldn't do that. The guy seemed disappointed, but he didn't say anything. He just kept standing there, looking at me. I noticed that he kept his left hand in the pocket of his jacket the entire time. It might be crazy of me to think this, but I was afraid he had some kind of weapon in there, even as he was talking and gesturing with his right hand. His left hand just stayed completely still inside his pocket. After he just stood there not responding for a good 10 seconds, I just opened my car door, threw my bags inside, and then got into myself. He kept standing there and watched as I started my engine and locked my doors. It was really awkward. I drove away, and it felt great to be leaving that situation. Part of me felt a little bad for not helping him, in case he really did just need a short ride somewhere, but I also knew that it would be almost crazy to do so. I drove out of the parking lot and got onto the main road. Just like the mall parking lot, the roads that had been so busy earlier were now much quieter. I was maybe 5 minutes into my drive home, with probably 10 more minutes to go, when I saw headlights in my rearview mirror. A car behind me was speeding up, closing the distance fast. I expected it to just pass me, but instead it drove right up to my rear bumper and then just stayed there. I was in the right lane, and there was a completely open lane right next to us. I couldn't understand why they weren't just going around me. Finally, I had to turn off at the next exit to go home. When I did, the car behind me did as well. That's when I knew. Whoever this was, they were following me, and I immediately had a sick feeling about who it could be. The car was a smaller, older-looking sedan, maybe from the late 90s or early 2000s. I kept driving toward my house, hoping they would just give up and turn off. Then they started flashing their brights at me, on and off, over and over. I took another turn, and the car stayed right behind me. As I was driving down that road, I happened to notice that I was about to pass our local police station. At the last possible second, I swerved into the parking lot. When I did, the car behind me followed me in. But as I drove right up to the building and parked in front of the door, I saw the car make a sharp U-turn and speed away. I was so incredibly happy to see it leave. Once I had parked, I actually got out and went inside the police station to let them know what had just happened. I answered some questions for several minutes, but unfortunately I don't think I was able to help much. I gave a description of the guy, but I didn't get his license plate number. After that, I was able to get home safely. I'm guessing the guy was trying to rob people leaving the mall. I'm not sure why he picked me, but I think it might be because I had several shopping bags in my hands, and it made him think I had money. Either way, I'm just glad I got away. And so, these stories come to an end. But some questions linger. After hearing these stories, will you ever be able to feel completely safe in a crowd again? Share your thoughts and theories. I read all the comments. See you in the next one.